time for Lumberjacks!
Lumberjacks is sponsored by Echo, only professional grade with 5-year warranty. Crown, protect, maintain, save. Gas Guzzler lifts gas and oils from land, vehicles, and tools. Yamaha, conquer outdoors.
We're back here in Brechin for the second annual Ontario Lumberjack Championships, and last week we had a great start to the competition. We're looking for more good things to come. Hi, I'm Bill Deba with my Lumberjack sports analyst and co-host Rod Cumberland. Rod, this week we got the standing block chop, the water boil, the women's underhand chop, and the pole climb.
Pole climb on the East Coast, far different than it is on the West Coast. Our poles are a whole lot smaller, and of course it's just a foot race to the bell. It's over pretty quickly. Nick Hall, he's an arborist. He actually has toe spurs. That's probably the name of the game in this business right now. And he's the guy that I look for in that event.
Now, in women's underhand chop, we have a real strong field of competitors. But I know you're looking forward to seeing two of them in particular.
Two in particular, Peg Engasser and Nancy Zaleski. They're at the top of their game. They've both been down under and chopped a lot. They love the event. I think it's going to be a foot race between the two of them to the end.
Well, the crowd is getting settled in for this next stage of our competition, which is going to conclude the pole climb. Last week we had the men's springboard chop and the axe throw. The leaderboard is chock full of solid competitors from Eastern Canada and Northeastern United States, with local hometown favorite Cecil Starr leading the way.
Mary Borg from Memramcook, New Brunswick, and I work for Correction Service Canada.
I'm Nick Hall. I'm from Orangeville, Ontario, and I'm an arborist.
Well, the guy's occupation should be a bit of a sneak peek into who's going to be the first one at the pole. Nick Hall, the arborist, where my money's going to be versus Mario.
Nick Hall gets a good start. It's 30 feet straight up. A bit of a slip. He regains his composure. Nick Hall wins the heat with a 5.82 in his first heat, as Mario's struggling to make it to the top.
Mario Bork far more comfortable swinging an axe with his feet firmly planted on the ground than he is climbing a pole and ringing a bell with spurs.
Hey, you're a seasoned pole climber there, buddy, but looked like a bit of a rookie at the beginning. What happened?
I had a little bit of a slip. These are filed for softer wood cedar. They're going a little bit easier and designed for coming down, so I don't want them to stick in too much. But pressure-treated wood gave them a little bit of trouble at the start, but sorted it out. Felt all right after that.
Well, in Nick's defense, he probably could have been a second or two quicker. He does a lot of pole climbing all over the world for companies that do Lumberjack Show demonstrations like West Coast Lumberjack Show. This next heat, Marcel taking on Mike. A couple of guys, not typical pole climber bodies.
The ones you usually see on television are the nice, slim, and trim guys that go up these poles in lightning speed. These fellas are built for power, not so much for speed. But look at Marcel Dupuis make those feet go.
Look at the feet. Short steps, but very, very quick. And Marcel Dupuis, he lowers the time to beat down to 5.47. Mike Core is just behind him. I'm not sure how long you've been climbing, but you know, some guys choose to use a little bit of a buck strap there. You go freehand up there. Just tell me why you chose to just use your hands.
Well, that's just how I started doing it. We climb once in a while out east, but it's not as popular as out west. So I just find I don't have the rhythm with the rope. With my hands, I can keep up pretty good.
My name's Cecil Starr. I'm a utility forester. I live in Lake Dalrymple, Ontario, and also glad to be a co-coordinator of this event.
Dave Engasser, Cortland, New York. I'm a line mechanic for New York State Electric and Gas.
Both these guys graduates of the Intercollegiate Series. This is where they learned this type of pole climbing at Lumberjack competitions.
And it wasn't yesterday they were doing it. This is really a young man's sport, but these guys giving it a good run. We've got a great race here to the bell.
And it's going to be Cecil Starr just edging out Dave Engasser with a 7.72. You've been climbing trees for a lot of years. You know, you made a bit of a mistake there at the beginning, though.
Yeah, I spurred out there. I'm not sure. It's a lot different when you're working than when you're racing, and we don't do that at work. You know, you get up there and do your work, but you don't be flying up and down like a moron like I do. But
okay. And some people go rope, some people go gloves. You just go bare hand.
Well, I had a pair of gloves, but I found them slippery on the pole, so I figured, well, I'll take my lumps if I get a couple slivers. And
well, the pole climb leaderboard shows a bunch of guys that climb trees for a living, but it was the fireman from New Brunswick that wins it. Welcome back to Brechin, Ontario, and the Ontario Lumberjack Championships. Just before the standing block chop, we had a chance to talk to one of the sponsors. I'm here with Shane from Space Age Insulation. You know, the second annual event here in Brechin. You guys are pretty excited to be part of this event, aren't you?
I wouldn't have missed it. What a fantastic event. Second annual Lumberjacks. We weren't a part of it last year, and there was no way we were missing it this year. Come out and see all the local people and watch the events.
Well, you know, events like this don't survive without sponsors and great sponsors like you. We really appreciate you being here.
They wouldn't have missed it, and I want to be here again next year, too. Hope they're back.
Well, we are now heading into one of the classic Lumberjack sports. You see it all Lumberjack competitions called the Standing Block Chop. We're going to be showing you the top 4 heats. This first heat, a couple of guys from New York State. Chris Henning versus Tim Keats. You know, Rod, you talk a lot about raw strength versus technique. This is a classic one where Tim Keats is going to have to rely on technique. Chris Henning, he relies on raw strength.
If I was the size of Chris Henning, I'd be relying on my raw strength too. Look at the size of this guy. He swings a mean axe. Of course, Tim Keats been chopping for about 30 years. We chopped together way back in the 80s at college, and he's doing a pretty good job here in a standing block.
Trying to keep pace with Chris Henning. Chris Henning makes his turn over to the backside first, and he's already well into the wood. Tim Keats is behind him at this point. Look at that force with Chris Henning's hits.
And it's really firm wood. As you can see, the chips aren't coming out that well, so it's going to take a little bit more muscle. It looks like Chris Henning has it as he drives it off here in 25.7 seconds.
Now, a couple of things there, Tim. First of all, slabbing nails are put in for a reason, right? You slabbed out, but you got your nails in, so you're good?
Yeah, as long as I made the effort to put the nails in, I'm fine.
Well, that piece of wood was hanging because it actually didn't break off until you made it your way over to the backside.
Yeah, as long as it's held there and you get it, you chop it, it's all legal.
Now, just tell me a little bit about your axe. I understand that the 5.0 one. Let's have a look at it and just tell me what that axe.
Well, the 50 is when I turned 50 years old. My buddy Dave Engasser made that up for me. Cut that out somehow and brazed it up. I'm not sure how he did it, but he surprised me with it. And I really like the axe. It's a nice weight, cuts pretty well, and it's great. And it's just happens to be made by Keach Castings. I don't think I'm related, but that makes it even better. My name in there and everything. So.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep, you're welcome.
Hi, my name is Kyle Spry. I'm from Walworth, New York. I work for Amica Mutual Insurance Company as an inside claims adjuster.
Mary Borg from Memramcook, New Brunswick, and I work for Correction Service Canada.
Well, Chris Henning established a time to beat with a 25.70 in that first heat of the standing block chop. This next heat, and then a couple of intercollegiate grads, Mario versus Kyle Spry.
Mario Bork from Memramcook, New Brunswick, a buddy of mine, and he actually has great technique in this event. He loves the standing block chop, but it's falling apart here now. You can see a lot of steps here. Kyle Spry's are on the second side already.
Kyle's way ahead of Mario. Mario makes his turn a little bit late, although sometimes you can play catch-up doing on the backside because you did your homework on the front side.
But Mario, it looks like he's a little bit behind now. Kyle's also chopped his block wrong here, but he's beating it off. Man, he just clubs it off of there ahead of Mario Borg.
Kyle Spry wins the second heat. Do you feel you may have opened up a little bit too narrow on the front side?
Well, what I think I did is I missed my, I didn't set a good front driver, and caused me to dog leg it and just pop it off and miss my drivers. And I mean, it was still a good cut, but I just didn't put a driver in the front and it caught up.
So explain that to the audience who are now watching the replay, that what happens to the block? It's not supposed to pop up like that, right?
No, the block's supposed to come straight down to the ground, and there's supposed to be like a 2-inch offset between, like a 2-inch shelf of wood that's left, and it just comes off nice and clean usually.
Donald Lambert, Saint-Gilles, Quebec. I am a technical solution specialist for Ricoh, Canada.
Yeah, I'm Gaston Dupré. I'm from Shipshaw, Quebec. I work for Rio Tinto Alcan like operator.
Well, it wasn't a pretty sight there, Kyle Spry, the way he chopped that block, but nonetheless, he lowered the time to beat down to 24.73. Here's the All-Quebec matchup, Duperret versus Lambert.
Oh, and Duperret, he's butchering his block already. He's only got 2 strokes into it. Don Lambert, great, nice, clean faces here as he drives his axe in, putting his drivers up to get around on second side.
Well, it looks like Gaston's got a number of different lines to choose from on the front side as he saunters over to the backside. Doesn't look like he's too much of a hurry. Donald certainly is in a hurry. He wants to win this heat, and Donald wins the heat, lowers the time to beat down to a 21.23 as Gaston struggles to the finish, and once again, he's wooded himself. Donald, I think the wood is chopping pretty good there. But you did most of your work on the front side, right?
Well, usually I do most of my work on front side because I'm fresh, well placed, and the more deep you go, less you have at the back.
I think you only had about 6 strokes in the back. Is that about right?
Yeah, about that, yeah, because I knew I was quite deep on the front.
Yeah, you took 11 strokes in the front. Were you expecting to do 10 or 11?
Well, maybe 10, but I was not sure. I prefer to be more secure for the back.
Hello, my name is Marcel Dupuis. I'm from Memramcook, New Brunswick, and my occupation is a firefighter for the city of Moncton.
My name's Cecil Starr. I'm a utility forester. I live in Lake Dalrymple, Ontario.
Well, Donald Lambert just lowered the time to beat down at 21:23. Here are two of the best saxmen in all of Canada. Marcel taking on Cecil Starr.
Marcel's a young gun, but he's got a lot of power, and he's learned his technique well from Paul Woodland. Look at Cecil Starr's pacer. He is annihilating this block.
He's hitting his marks as well. Cecil makes his way over to the backside. Marcel keeping pace with him, right with him.
He left a lot of wood to make the change fast, but Marcel's got the power to drive it off in the back.
21:23 is the time they're looking to beat. Cecil's putting some drivers in. He's gonna, and he wins the standing block shot with a time of 20.90. Cecil, 11 inches round, a little bit different than 10 or 12. Tell me the difference in how you might attack 11-inch round.
Well, usually try and put a good front in, but it's funny today, I never ever hardly go 1-1 in anything, and I went 1-1 in the back, and it paid off today. And I don't really know why I did that. I kind of was out. I was too far close to me with my first hit. Like, oh, let's try it. Chip came out. If that chip hangs up, it buggers you up, but it came out today, and I got lucky for the win, so.
Well, our American Lumberjacks gave it a run in the standing block chop, but the top three are Canadians, with Cecil Starr leading the charge.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Insect Defend Patch. Deep free protection from biting insects.
Welcome back to the Ontario Lumberjack Championships in Brechin, Ontario, and we've been watching a lot of the men chop and saw their way through the competition. We are taking a little bit of break from the men. We are going to watch the women's underhand chop. We had a field of 8 competitors. We're going to be showing the top heat, Peg Engasser versus Nancy Zaleski.
Peg's got her handful with Nancy. Of course, she's a strong girl. She puts all of her strength into the underhand chop. Peg has got to rely on her technical ability here and try to chop a block that's technically correct.
Well, I was talking to Peg before the show. She has told me that she's been down under Australia and New Zealand for the last 12 years, that is the place to learn to chop.
Chopping down there is just like hockey in Canada. It's their national sport. You can see Peg, if she's learning from those guys, they chop a lot harder wood, and your technique has to be flawless if you're going to get through it.
Well, she really has good technique. She's in great shape. She doesn't really carry any body fat on her. Peg Engasser well into the way in the backside. Nancy just making her turn right now.
She's into the big one on her second side. You can see Peg's getting into the small wood. Once you get into the small wood, she got to put her drivers in to meet the drivers on her power side on the other side. She's almost ready to put the drives off.
And Peg Engasser wins the women's underhand chop with a time of 34.09. That was a classic contrast in two different styles of chopping, you know, with a little bit more speed versus the power of Nancy. Yeah, you win. Can you compare the two styles?
Well, I didn't see her cut. I don't know. I guess, you know, if you're cutting slower, you're theoretically putting more oomph behind each hit, and you're really technically doing it correctly, and, you know, you're thinking about it. To go a little bit faster, for me anyway, I sort of have to go on autopilot, and just, if I'm trying to move faster, I can't really think.
Well, the years of experience and the hard work and the training of Peg Engasser certainly paid off in the women's underhand chop. She told me she's been traveling down to New Zealand and Australia for the last 12 years. Look at that. She beats the field by 4 seconds over a pretty good, strong field of competitors. We're going to change gears. We're going to stick with the women. Now we are going to the women's single buck. They're going to be sawing through 15 inches round of trembling aspen. First heat, we got Janet Walker taking on Melissa DeCantis.
We've got a college coach here and a college competitor. I know Melissa just graduated from Sir Sanford. Janet Walker, of course, coached the NSAC girls team there for several years, and now they're both going at it here head-to-head in the single buck.
We got a faster pace by Janet on the right-hand side, but look at Melissa. Strong, deliberate, slow strokes, and her saw is dropping. She's putting a lot of weight on it. Looks like Janet's spinning her wheels a little bit.
She's spinning, you see, she's running out of strength here a little bit. Not sure how much she's training, but JP Mercier there's wedging for. She got the best of the best wedging, but it's going to be Melissa that's the first one down at 22.1.
Moo, you got a lot of experience at the intercollegiate level. We don't see you in the pro ranks too much. This is among the first few competitions in the single buck. How do you feel about that?
I feel pretty good. I mean, it's a lot different in the college circuit, so I think just getting in there and having the other people come up to me and give me tips is the perfect way to start. So. And
no hang-ups, no real catching rakers or anything like that. Nice and smooth and steady and keeping focus, right?
Yeah, that's. I tend to get flustered when I'm at competition, so I had my coach there and he just reminded me to stay calm, and it worked out better.
Well, that all-Canadian matchup in the first heat had Melissa DeCantis setting the time to beat with a time of 22.15. This next all-New York heat, Peg Engasser taking on Tracy Henning.
These single buck saws set you back about $2,000 to $2,500. They're usually 2 peg or 4 peg and rakers. They come from either Quebec, West Coast in America, or else down under. These here look like JP Mercier blades, so they should cut relatively fast in this popple.
Looks like Tracy may have a little bit of advantage, a height advantage, being able to get over her log. Peg Angasser, the log is pretty high. She's sawing a little bit level there, which is not so bad, but Tracy's really using her strength to her advantage.
She really seems to be laboring, and Tracy Henning has a really good pace now. Her saw is sinking a little bit faster than this. It looks like Tracy Henning's going to take it down with a 20.7.
Your single buck's coming a long way. Is it the coaching, is it the training, or is it a combination of both?
I have a neighbor called Dave Jewett, and he's helped me out some.
I know last year we talked about Dave Jewett, and I said that, you were kind of losing your angle, and you told me that that's what Dave Jewett said. So are you continuing to work on that and lower yourself with the saw?
Yes, definitely. He's made me kind of like lower myself, and yeah. So yeah, working still.
Well, Tracy Henning and her coach Dave Jewett are going to be proud of the fact that they lowered the time to beat down to 20.78 with this last heat of the women's single buck. We got veteran competitor Levon Michelacci taking on world record holder in the women's single buck, Nancy Zaleski.
And Nancy's on top of her game here today. We saw her win the bow saw a little bit earlier. She's running a JP Mercier blade, and he's also wedging and oiling for her.
Well, he's spraying some Crown lubricant on that saw, which is actually the best lubricant you can use in any kind of bow sawing or buck sawing event. And we got Levon Michelacci really struggling on the left-hand side. Nancy clearly the class of this heat.
She's putting the pressure to it now. She's got a few more strokes. She's into the small wood, keeps her pace up, and she's off an 18.5.
And she wins a women's single buck. Nothing like being a guinea pig there. JP Mercier says he tried one type of crown on the top, another type of crown on the bottom. Still a pretty good time.
It was, he told me going in, well, we're going to try one thing on top. I'm not concerned about you winning. We'll do a couple different things, and very different for me. It was exactly what he thought it would be. It was a bit tight on the top, and it freed up on the bottom, so really happy that he switched.
Well, just as advertised, world record holder Nancy Zaleski in the women's single buck beats the field by over 2 seconds with an 18.53. Well, we're more than halfway through the Lumberjack competition here in Brechin, Ontario, and we are heading into an always interesting and exciting event called the Water Boil. We'll go over the rules of the game here, but we got 10 teams of competitors here, Rod. Who do you like as your favorites?
You got to pick the people that have done this a lot at professional events in the past, or people that have done it at collegiate level. So looking at that leaderboard, obviously the guys from the East, Paul Woodland, Marcel Dupuis, Mario Bork, Scott Reed, they have done it a lot at collegiate and also in the professional ranks. So my money would be on those guys.
Well, they're guys from the Maritimes as well. I know you got some soft spots in your hearts from all those Maritimers. We have some guys from New York who typically don't do it that much down in the States. We got Canadians here. We got Christine Gibb and Cecil Starr. We got a team of Nick Hall with Melissa DeCantis. We got the Henning couple here, Chris and Tracy. So it's really a wide range. We have a heat of 10 here. It's hard to follow it all, but basically what are the rules of the game here?
Rules of the game, you're given 5 matches, a block of cedar, and of course you use your axe and a can of soapy water. And you've got to make shavings as fast as you can. The trick to the kettle boil is to get your kettle on the fire as soon as you can.
Well, you want the water heating up quickly, and obviously the sooner you get the can on top of that fire, it's going to heat up. This team here of Mary Reeder and Levon Michelacci, a little bit of inexperience. JP Mercier and Janet Walker, they got some experience going here.
Janet Walker used to coach the NSAC in the kettle boil, so obviously a bit of experience there. Now the key also, you look at these blocks, you see a lot of knots. The key, what I usually do before the kettle boil is look at where those knots are, and I mark them off on my block so I don't spend all my time trying to chop through a knot that isn't splittable.
Here's one of the favorite teams to watch, Team New Brunswick here from Paul Woodland and Marcel Dupuis taking on Team New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Mario and Scott Reed.
And if you look at the size of the fires right now, Mario and Scott are a long ways ahead. They've got a lot of wood on their fire. Actually, Marcel and Paul are quite a ways behind here.
Well, I think one of the keys you told me over the years as well, you want to be able to heat up the sides of the cans as well. Just underneath the can is not going to do it.
That's right, and actually just a minute ago we saw Scott Reed making more shavings, so he realizes the fire was almost out. He put a lot more underneath, so he knows that he doesn't have a whole lot of fuel underneath there. These guys got a good fire going here right now. It's all built up around. They got all kinds of wood around the outside of it, so it should actually contain the heat.
Well, Team New Brunswick, Paul Wood and Marcel Dupuis, they're going to try and contain the heat. They don't want the flames escaping as well, do they?
At all, and actually they're blowing they should blow alternating blows, not at the same time. Now they're doing that. You see they're alternating their blows here. That's really what you want to do, not blow at the same time, because you're pushing against one another.
Well, here we got Scott and Mario here. They got a flame escaping all over the place. Do they have enough heat that's being contained?
Look at this. Paul and Marcel's almost went out there back again. Look how much flame we have here at Scott and Mario's. They've done this a lot, but obviously there's the fire has gone from underneath the can. It's just on the sides of it now, so there's not enough to push it up over the top.
Well, we've got the sides coming very close to the top there from Paul and Marcel. Scott and Mario are right behind them there. I can't believe it hasn't come up right now. Cecil and Christine are trying to play some catch-up. Looks like Paul and Marcel are going to win this one. That's their can. And Paul and Marcel are declared the victory in this one heat of the water boil. Well, you know, when I work with Rod Cumberland a lot, he tells me that he taught you. Okay, Marcel, you got to give me one or two of your secrets from New Brunswick fire building.
I was just listening to Paul, so I don't remember too much what he said, but that's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Well, one thing we did teach him in the East is not to give out all your deep, dark secrets on national television. Marcel Dupuis and Paul Wynn will put them to good use with a time of 3 minutes and 49 seconds.
And our crown pivotal point this week is Marcel Dupuis in the pole climb. In a field full of arborists and guys who climb trees for a living, this fireman from New Brunswick wins it with a 5.47.
There's lots of competitors trying to squeeze their way onto the leaderboard, but Marcel Dupuis and Cecil Starr are starting to distance themselves from the rest of the field. Cecil Starr with 25-point advantage over Marcel.
And our gas guzzler lumberjack of the day is actually a lumberjill. Peg Angasser, physically fit, but probably one of the smallest women in the field, dominates the underhand shop with a 34.06.
And I put on enough shows in the East Coast to know that nothing is possible without the great support of local businesses like you're seeing here.
Now we're 2/3 of the way through the competition here in Brechin for the Ontario Lumberjack Championships, and it's still anybody's game, although two guys are starting to run away with it. This past show, we saw a wide range of skill levels from both the men and the women in this show.
And Nancy Zaleski, though, she pounded the competition in the single buck just amazingly. And then in the men's pole climb, real big upset. Nick Hall had a slip going up the pole, gave it away to Marcel Dupuis, going hand over hand, those little choppy steps, but he was the first one to ring the bell.
Come back again next time for the exciting conclusion right here on Lumberjacks.
Lumberjacks is sponsored by Echo, only professional grade with 5-year warranty. Crown, protect, maintain, save. K100, make water burn. Yamaha, conquer outdoors.
At most lumberjack competitions, they have an event called the standing block chop. They take these lathe-turned round pieces of wood, 10, 11, 12, sometimes 13 inches in diameter, and put them on these stands we call stanchions. These dogs here are hooks, basically. They go into the wood, there's 4 of them, they go around the wood and hold the wood to the stand. Now this stand is bolted with 8 bolts into the stage so that everything is firm as the competitors pound away at this block with their 6-pound razor-sharp axes.